My heartbeat was pounding in my chest, afraid that my suspicion might be true. I was scared to face the betrayal that awaits me. Something inside me pushed me forward, made me open the door. I stepped into the room, my breath catching in my throat. My eyes locked onto them. David, my husband, 48, tangled in the sheets with Jessica, 24, Ella's best friend. My daughter's best friend. The girl I had welcomed into our home like family. The girl I had treated like a daughter. They were in my bed, the bed I had made that morning, and then she saw me. Our eyes met across the room, and my world shattered. She didn't scramble for an excuse or even seem surprised. She smiled. And in that moment I realized everything. This was no accident. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned. She wanted me to see. She wanted me to feel every ounce of the betrayal she'd caused. And that smile. It was her victory. But she did not know I had something else planned. A payback that would hit her hard and make her regret for the rest of her life. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel to get more uplifting stories about women that have been betrayed and mistreated by family members but still got back on their feet with a happy ending. Now back to the story. 8 weeks ago everything was normal. Or so I thought. David and I had been married for 20 years. 20 years of shared memories, laughter, struggles and triumphs. We had built a life together, one that was supposed to be strong, unbreakable. We had Ella, our beautiful daughter, now 23, who was just starting her career. She was smart, kind, and the joy of our lives. We had created this perfect picture of a family, an image of a happy, stable home. And I believed in it with all my heart. But now, looking back, there were signs. Small things. Little shifts that, at the time, I wrote off as nothing. David coming home later and later from work. His eyes tired. His demeanor distant. I assumed it was the stress of his job. He was always closing deals, managing his responsibilities at the office. I never questioned it. After all, this was a man who had provided for us, who had worked tirelessly to give us the life we had. It seemed like nothing more than work-related exhaustion. And then there was his phone. I'd notice him glancing at it more often, turning it face down on the table during meals, and sometimes even texting in private. I told myself it was nothing. Business calls, messages from clients, things that didn't concern me. What did I have to worry about? We had built a strong foundation, a trust that I thought couldn't be shaken. So I ignored it. He would shower immediately when he came home, sometimes without so much as a hello. I dismissed it again. He had always been someone who liked to wash off the day's stress, a habit he'd had long before. Maybe it was his way of decompressing. I told myself it was normal, that it didn't mean anything. I focused on the life we were building, the plans we had for the future, and the dream vacation we'd been planning for our 20th anniversary next year. Nothing was out of place. Or so I thought. When Jessica started visiting more frequently, I didn't question it either. Ella and Jessica had been inseparable since college. They were close, and I welcomed Jessica into our home. I felt for her. She came from a broken family, a mother who had moved away and rarely kept in touch, a father who had remarried. She had always been so warm, so eager for affection and connection. I took her under my wing, offering her the maternal warmth she lacked. She became a regular part of our lives, spending holidays with us, attending Sunday brunches, and confiding in me about her struggles. I played the role of the caring, supportive mother. She called me her second mom, and I believed it, felt proud of it. But now I see how blind I was. I trusted her completely. I thought I was helping, that I was offering a safe haven for someone who needed it. I never saw her as a threat. She was a young woman who had no family, no stable support system. I never considered what she might want from me, from our family. But as time went on, I began to notice little things that should have raised alarms. She was always around when David was, positioning herself close to him, always a little too familiar. There were moments when she would smile at him in a way that felt different, a glint in her eye that I didn't want to acknowledge. But I pushed it down, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. After all, she was like a daughter to me. The first real crack in the illusion came during that brunch 3 weeks ago. I remember it vividly. We had gone to a new restaurant downtown. The kind with exposed brick and artisanal everything. Marlene had just received a potential promotion at work, and Jessica had started a new job in marketing. We were all celebrating, chatting about their careers and future plans. Everything seemed normal, comfortable. But then, Jessica wore that floral perfume. The same fragrance I had complimented her on just weeks before. The same scent that would haunt me forever. As she hugged me hello, I caught a whiff of it, and a strange unease settled in my stomach. It was subtle, but something about the way she looked at David made me uncomfortable. They exchanged a glance, quick and fleeting, but it was enough for me to notice. And then I saw it. A shift in the air, something unspoken between them. Jessica smiled at him, and my stomach turned. I quickly pushed the thought away, brushing it off as nothing. But in that moment I felt it, a flicker of doubt of something off. I couldn't shake the feeling, but I told myself I was being paranoid. It was nothing. Everything was fine. After all, what was there to worry about? I had my family, my husband, the life we had built together. What could possibly go wrong? But even as I tried to convince myself, I felt the cracks widening, growing just a little bit deeper, even if I didn't yet fully understand what was happening. I should have trusted my gut. I should have asked the questions that now seem so obvious. But at the time I thought everything was fine. Until one day, everything shattered, and I had no choice but to see the truth. I can still picture that brunch. The sun was shining down on us, casting a warm glow over the table as we sat at the new place downtown. The rustic charm of the exposed brick walls and the hum of laughter from other patrons created a comfortable backdrop. Marlene had just received a promotion possibility at work, and Jessica had started her new job in marketing. We were celebrating their successes, and everything felt like it was in its place. Should have been the perfect day. But then there was Jessica. She wore that floral perfume again, the same one she had worn when I first complimented her just weeks before. I didn't think much of it at first, but the moment she hugged me hello, I couldn't shake the unease in my stomach. The scent lingered in the air, too sweet, too intimate, and I couldn't help but notice the way she looked at David. It was subtle, but there was something about the way their eyes met, a glint, a shared understanding. Something unspoken passed between them, and for just a second, I felt the ground shift beneath me. But I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just a young girl, eager for validation, and David was a successful, charming man. What did I have to worry about? I trusted both of them. I had opened my home to her, provided her with the stability she didn't have, and this slight moment of tension, was nothing more than my imagination running wild. So I ignored it. I brushed it aside. The next week, though, David brought me lilies. My favorite flowers. No special occasion, just because. It was a sweet gesture, one that I couldn't deny had me feeling a brief, fleeting sense of relief. That night we spent time together alone. He made love to me, his hands gentle, his eyes soft. I let myself believe for a moment that maybe, just maybe, things were getting better between us. That the distance between us, which had grown so quietly over time, was finally closing. For that night, I let myself believe in the illusion of our happiness, in the warmth that had once defined our marriage. But the illusion shattered just a few days later. It was a quiet evening, the kind where nothing remarkable happens, but everything seems to be in place. David was in the shower, and I was sitting on the couch, idly scrolling through my phone. I glanced over at his phone, which was lying on the coffee table. A notification popped up on the screen. I should have ignored it. I should have left it alone. But something inside me pushed me to look. It was a text message from an unknown number. The preview read, "Can't wait for tomorrow. Same time, no name." My heart skipped a beat. It was casual, cryptic, but something in my gut twisted. What did it mean? Who was this person? And why was David texting them about tomorrow? I wanted to confront him right then and there. I wanted to pick up the phone to demand answers, to tear the veil off whatever this was. But I didn't. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to believe it. My mind immediately tried to justify it, Maybe it was work, maybe it was some innocent message, maybe I was just overreacting. So I did nothing. I chose to believe that it was a mistake, that there was an explanation, something that would make sense if I just waited long enough. But deep down I knew. I knew something was wrong, even if I couldn't yet face the truth. And that one text, that one notification, felt like a crack in the foundation of everything I had believed in. It was the first sign, the first undeniable piece of evidence that something had shifted. And I could no longer ignore the fact that my husband, the man I had built my life with, was slipping away. I had been feeling off all day, a dull headache that wouldn't go away, but I pushed through it. I kept thinking it was just stress, the lingering weight of the past few weeks building up inside me. But when I left the office early, hoping a nap might ease the tension in my head, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. I was tired, too tired to argue with myself, but as I opened the door to our home, the discomfort intensified. I knew something was wrong even before I heard it. The soft noises, almost like whispers, came from upstairs. At first, I dismissed them, telling myself it was just the house settling, the wind outside brushing against the windows. But my body reacted before my mind could catch up. My heart pounded, a surge of adrenaline rushing through me. I stopped at the base of the stairs, standing there in the entryway, fighting the rising dread in my stomach. I tried to ignore it, tried to talk myself out of it. It's nothing, I told myself. Just your mind playing tricks. David's probably working or on a call. It's fine. But everything inside me screamed otherwise. I didn't want to face it. But my feet moved on their own, carrying me upstairs toward the bedroom. I could hear the sound more clearly now. Soft laughter, then a muffled gasp. Something inside me recoiled, but I couldn't stop myself. I reached for the doorknob, my hand cold and shaking, but I couldn't pull away. Not yet. Opened it. The moment the door creaked open, I felt my world shift. Time slowed down, and for a second nothing seemed real. There on the bed were David and Jessica. They were tangled in the sheets I had carefully arranged that morning, the Egyptian cotton I'd splurged on for our anniversary. My stomach turned. I couldn't breathe. The room felt heavy, suffocating, as if the very air had turned toxic. David's back was to me. His bare skin exposed in a way that should have been intimate between us, but now felt like a betrayal. And then there was Jessica, my daughter Ella's best friend. The girl I had welcomed into our home, the girl I had trusted as part of our family. She turned her head, and for a split second our eyes locked. Her smile. That was the moment that shattered me. It wasn't the guilty, terrified smile of someone caught. Well, it was something far worse. It was deliberate. It was the smile of a conqueror, of someone who had planned this moment, who wanted me to see, to feel every bit of the devastation. I froze in the doorway, my body immobilized by shock, my heart splitting in two. I couldn't process what was happening. I couldn't make sense of it. My mind scrambled for an explanation, for something that could make this okay. But there was no explanation, no comfort, just the cold, undeniable reality of what I was witnessing. David scrambled to pull himself together, reaching for his clothes, trying to cover himself, trying to salvage some form of decency. "Claire, wait," he said, his voice shaky, his face contorted in panic. He looked at me, eyes wide, his mouth forming words, but nothing came out. The facade was crumbling in front of me. He stood there, clearly trying to explain, to justify, to lie. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear him, couldn't process the excuses. I was too far gone. He knew. Finally he spoke, and I could feel the words hit me like a punch. "It's a mistake," he said, desperation in his voice, as if saying it over and over could somehow erase the truth. "I never meant for this to happen." I couldn't hold back any longer. "How long?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "How long has this been going on?" David hesitated. I could see the guilt flicker in his eyes, the realization that he had been caught, but he still tried to hold on to the control. 3 months, he admitted, his voice low, the weight of the admission crushing me. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." 3 months. 3 months of lies, of betrayal, of him sleeping in our bed, acting as if nothing was wrong. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and all I could think was that he had betrayed me, my trust, our family. I took a deep breath, holding back the tears that threatened to spill over. My mind was reeling, but one question burned in my mind. "Did you love her?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, as if saying it aloud would confirm the death of everything I had believed in. David's answer came quickly, almost too quickly. "No," he said, but the lie was evident. "I love you, Claire. I've always loved you. But it wasn't love. Love didn't feel like this. Love didn't betray someone over and over again. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Series of choices. Choices to lie, to deceive, to hurt me. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I couldn't stand there any longer. I was suffocating. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "Leave. Now." David opened his mouth, probably to protest, to beg, but I didn't care. I didn't want to hear it. He had already said everything I needed to hear. He had chosen her. He had chosen this. I didn't wait for him to leave. I turned, and with my heart pounding, my legs shaking, I walked out of the room. There was no more conversation, no more excuses, no more lies. There was only the truth. And the truth had never hurt so much. After the confrontation, the numbness I had felt began to wear off, and something cold and calculating took its place. I couldn't just let this go. Not without knowing everything. I needed to understand how deep the betrayal ran, how long David and Jessica had been playing me for a fool. And so, I began the process of digging into the truth, piece by painful piece. The first step was to trace Jessica's social media profiles. I had never paid much attention to them before. Sure, I'd liked a few of her photos, commented on her posts, and had welcomed her into our home with open arms. But now I was looking at her through an entirely different lens. I started with Instagram, then Facebook, and even LinkedIn. I scrolled through her posts, her interactions, the comments she left on David's pages. The more I dug, the more I felt my stomach churn with disgust. There was her pattern. A consistent presence in the lives of older, married men. Photos of her at company events, laughing beside married business associates, exchanging glances that I now realized had double meanings. At first glance, it all looked innocent. But it was calculated. Could see it now. There were photos from family gatherings, Christmas, Thanksgiving, even casual dinners where David stood next to her, his hand resting on her shoulder just a little too familiarly. How had I missed all of this? How had I been so blind? I kept scrolling, taking screenshots of everything. I knew I had to build a case. Jessica had spent years weaving herself into our lives, and now it was time to show the world exactly who she was. The most damning evidence, however, came from her own posts. As I pieced everything together, I could see how she'd positioned herself as a close friend, someone trusted, someone indispensable. She'd infiltrated my family with the kind of precision that made my blood run cold. But it didn't stop there. I turned my attention to David's behavior. I had always been the one to handle the household finances, so when I looked into our joint accounts, I immediately noticed discrepancies. Small amounts were missing. A few $100s here and there, but they added up quickly. I pulled out every statement from the last 6 months, and my heart dropped as I saw more. David had been moving money without telling me. It wasn't just small amounts. He had transferred large sums of money to an account that I had no access to. And the transactions didn't stop there. Some of the money had been used for extravagant hotel stays, meals at expensive restaurants, and, of course, gifts. For Jessica, it was like a punch in the gut. All this time I had been trusting him, believing his lies, thinking we were building a future together. But here was the proof. David had been using our finances to fund his affair, to hide it from me, and to cover his tracks. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to know everything. So I hired an investigator, Tara Bennett, a former NYPD detective who now ran her own private firm. She came highly recommended, and I knew she was the one who could get to the bottom of this. We met in a quiet cafe, and I told her everything. Tara listened without judgment, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. "I'll start immediately," she said, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't going to be easy, but we'll get you the answers you need." Over the next 2 weeks, Tara's team worked quickly, gathering evidence. She tracked every meeting, every phone call, every message exchanged between David and Jessica. The results were undeniable. Despite his promises, despite his claims of remorse, David was still seeing Jessica. The affair wasn't over. It never had been. He'd been lying to me the entire time. I felt a strange sense of relief in knowing the truth, even though it crushed me. It was all right there. His betrayal, his lies, Jessica's calculated manipulation. There was no more doubt. And as much as I hated it, as much as I wished I could have been wrong, I knew what I had to do next. I had the evidence. Now it was time to take action. I knew the time had come to act. For weeks, I had been living in a haze of disbelief and numbness, but now there was clarity. It wasn't just about my pain anymore. It was about making sure this betrayal didn't go unchecked, that the people involved in ruining my life were exposed for the selfish, deceitful people they were. I couldn't let them walk away unscathed. I had the evidence, and it was time to use it. But there was still one thing I had to figure out. How to do it without destroying Ella in the process. She had been through enough already. I couldn't bring myself to tell her just yet. She deserved a little more time, a little more peace. So, I decided I'd wait for the perfect moment, the right setting where everyone would have to face the truth, and the damage would be minimized. It had to be in a place where I could control the narrative, where no one could escape what had been done. Ella's birthday party felt like the right time. It was a celebration, a moment for her to shine, but I knew it could also serve as a catalyst for exposing everything that had been going on behind the scenes. I couldn't leave it to chance anymore. Couldn't sit back and pretend everything was fine. I'd spent too many years doing that, ignoring the warning signs, convincing myself that nothing was wrong. The plan took shape quickly after that. I decided to invite key people, our friends, David's colleagues, and of course Jessica's co-workers. I had one more addition to the list, Patricia. She was a woman I had met through Tara's investigation, a woman who had also been affected by Jessica's manipulative ways. Patricia had been one of Jessica's earlier victims, and her story resonated with me. We connected instantly, and I knew she could provide an important perspective when the time came. Her presence would only add weight to the revelation I was about to deliver. I spent hours preparing a presentation. I made sure everything was in order. Photos, texts, timestamps, and a detailed timeline of their affair. The affair that had spanned months, the lies, the cover-ups, the manipulation. I had it all. Proof that would leave no room for excuses. I wasn't just exposing David. I was exposing Jessica for what she was. A predator who had wormed her way into my life, pretending to be a friend while plotting my destruction. The day of the party came, and I kept my composure as best as I could. I played the role of the doting mother, welcoming guests and engaging in conversation, all the while knowing that the bomb I was about to drop would change everything. The tension inside me was suffocating, but I kept it hidden. I couldn't let anyone see what was coming. As the night went on, the time finally arrived. Ella was opening presents with all the joy and enthusiasm of a 23-year-old, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. I could see Logan across the room, chatting with his colleagues. His face relaxed, confident, unaware that the foundation he had so carefully built was about to collapse. Jessica stood near him, a little too close for comfort, as always. I could feel the weight of their presence, but I had to remain focused. I took a deep breath and signaled to the guests. "Before we have cake," I said, my voice steady, "I'd like to share something with all of you. This is part of Ella's gift." I could hear the murmurs of curiosity spread among the guests, and I knew they had no idea what was coming. I clicked the remote, and the screen in the living room lit up. The presentation began. The room went silent as photos of David and Jessica together at hotels, timestamps, locations, and text messages scrolled across the screen. The affair was laid bare in front of everyone. Logan's face drained of color as he realized what was happening, and Jessica's face twisted in something close to panic as she realized her secret was no longer safe. But there was no turning back now. Marlene, my beautiful daughter, stood frozen. I saw her eyes fill with confusion, and then, slowly, they filled with something far worse: betrayal. The weight of the truth hit her like a tidal wave. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She looked from David to Jessica, her face crumpling as the pieces of her own reality shifted. She turned to me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't speak for a moment. All I could do was watch the pain wash over her. The love she had for Jessica, for the woman she had trusted, was now shattered. Jessica tried to speak, to explain herself, but her words were hollow. She tried to justify her actions, but the more she spoke, the more she revealed how deeply calculated everything had been. "I never meant for it to be like this," she said, though the empty apology fell flat in the face of everything she had done. Marlene turned away from her and looked at David. "How could you? How could you do this to Mom? To me?" Her voice cracked as she took a step back, her whole body shaking with the weight of the truth. David, now visibly shaken, tried to speak, to apologize, but it was too late. The truth was out, and the lies were laid bare. "I love you," he said, reaching for me. "I never meant to hurt you." But it was no use. His words felt empty, like a bad actor reciting lines. With a shaking hand, I handed David the divorce papers. The final act that would end our marriage. "We're done," I said, my voice firm, unwavering. "This is over." The room was still, frozen in the aftermath of the storm I had unleashed. And though the pain in my heart was almost unbearable, there was a sense of relief too. The truth had come out, and now there was no more pretending. The days following the reveal were a blur of activity, but there was an underlying sense of quiet relief that I couldn't quite shake. The truth had come out, and I had stood firm, making sure that Logan and Jessica couldn't hide behind their lies any longer. The divorce was finalized quickly, faster than I had expected, and as much as the process was painful, it also gave me something I hadn't had in a long time: control. Control over my life, my choices, and the space that had once been shared with someone I thought I knew. I reclaimed my life piece by piece, and it felt like I was finally breathing again. The weight that had pressed down on me for months, maybe even years, lifted. The constant tension, the pretending, the questions in my mind. I was free of it. The house, once tainted by the lies and betrayal that had occurred within its walls, began to feel like home again. The space, now empty of Logan's presence, allowed me to breathe without the constant reminder of what had been done to me. Logan, on the other hand, didn't get off so easily. The moment the truth came out, the repercussions hit him like a freight train. Jessica's reputation was dragged through the mud, just as I had known it would be. She was no longer the sweet, innocent girl who had once been my daughter's best friend. People saw her for what she truly was: a manipulative, scheming woman who had destroyed families to satisfy her own selfish desires. I heard whispers of her job search becoming increasingly difficult, and I knew it was well-deserved. She had made her choices, and now she was paying for them. As for Logan, his business partners distanced themselves from him. The trust they once had in him, built over years of professional relationships, shattered in the blink of an eye. His clients requested new managers. His reputation tainted, irreparably damaged. I wasn't sure what hurt him more, the personal betrayal or the professional fallout, but I didn't care. He had made his choices, and now he was dealing with the consequences. And I could finally take a step back and watch it all unfold from a safe distance. 6 months later, I found myself in the most unexpected situation: running into Jessica again. It wasn't planned, and I certainly didn't expect it, but there she was, standing across the street from me. She looked different, colder, harder. The carefree, innocent smile she once wore was now replaced by something more calculating. Her eyes, once warm and full of life, now had a guarded, distant quality to them. She knew I saw her, and I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she tried to avoid my gaze. I wasn't surprised. She knew the damage she had caused, and she knew that I wasn't someone she could manipulate anymore. For a moment I hesitated. I thought about the pain she had caused, the way she had turned my world upside down. The anger, the hurt, it all resurfaced for just a second. But then something shifted inside of me. I realized I didn't care anymore. I had moved on. I had rebuilt my life, and whatever Jessica had hoped to take from me, my family, my home, my sense of self, she hadn't succeeded. She had only shown me how strong I was, how capable of overcoming anything life threw my way. I smiled at her, but it wasn't with bitterness, not with anger or resentment. It was a smile of peace. I had survived, and that, more than anything, was what mattered. Without a word, I turned and walked away from her, leaving her behind, just as I had left everything else she had tried to steal from me. I didn't look back. She was no longer part of my life, and she never would be again. The future, my future, was mine to create, and I would do it on my terms.